So we have been doing. How long have we been doing this now? I guess a month, 2 months, the make or break deal. I mean, we've about a month and a half. We've done
Yeah.
two sometimes. Sometimes we've done one. Last week we only did one with Dax. And again, I just want to reemphasize that make or break is kind of an ambiguous term, right? I mean, it's like somebody that's on the roster bubble, somebody that just needs to, with high expectations, that needs to have a good year, build back trust, whatever the case may be. It's not necessarily guys that are totally in danger of being cut necessarily, but it's just a big year for the team to take the next step and get back into the postseason and through the postseason potentially. So there's a little bit of different caveats here. And instead, speaking of caveats, we usually do individual players. We're gonna switch it up this week, and I'm gonna let you take the lead on this one, John, because you, the smart guy on the show, thought this one up, and it has to do with the sometimes forgotten third unit of a team.
I'll tell you what, special teams was not forgotten for Bengals fans last year with the season that some of these guys had, but it was unfortunate with how the offense and the defense was just not complimentary football for most of 2024. And to top it all off, you had Evan McPherson struggle kicking field goals. You had Ryan Rico struggle oftentimes holding for McPherson and kind of finding his way as a punter. And oftentimes, even the snap was late sometimes from Cal Adamitis, and you never hear about Cal Adamitis' name unless, unfortunately, something unfortunate happens. So all three of these guys, they're back. Two of them re-signed with the team. Adamitis signed basically a non-guaranteed 1-year deal minimum. Ryan Rico was the same, only it was for 2 years. So essentially, the Bengals just bought his rights for the next 2 years as he was like a restricted free agent, all that jazz, right? So those guys are under contract, but nothing's guaranteed for them. They don't have another punter on the roster, but they do have another long snapper. William Wagner was I think regarded as one of the best long snappers to exit college this year, and obviously Adamitis was that coming out of Pitt when Clark Harris is still here. So Darrin Simmons is pretty in tune with who's the best at snapping at the college level. But I think this has to start with McPherson because he's the guy. I mean, his extension starts this year, essentially. He's under contract for the next 3 years. They can't really cut him this year. They can't really cut him next year either without it would save a couple $100,000, right? So he's on the team. And again, like you said, this isn't about like whether or not McPherson's going to make it through the summer, but his legacy, I think, as a Bengals kicker it's kind of spotty. Outside of his rookie season, he's been extremely up and down over these past few years, and the value of having him is clear with how he's capable of kicking from basically anywhere on the field. Like, there's no other kickers really, especially now with Justin Tucker kind of out of the league. There's no other kickers that like have a clear advantage on him in terms of how far he can kick it, and especially his potential of accuracy from distance. It was such a weapon when they added him and then when they drafted him compared to the kickers that they had in previous years. And it's important for him to get back to that. Like, I think it's also important that the Bengals offense continues to be aggressive on fourth downs and not necessarily settling for 57, 58, 60-yard field goals, especially with the quarterback that they have. But when those situations pop up, it's important for McPherson to get back to a sense of reliability from distance. I think most people are comfortable with him, making kicks from within 40 yards, and there's definitely value with that, but he's also now one of the highest paid kickers in the league, and the true value of those guys are to be weapons from deep. So it's important for him to have a bounce back year this year, especially considering like he just hasn't necessarily been that same guy ever since that insane rookie season.
It's odd because there were, not talking about 2024 in the years prior, the Bengals would have those a couple of hiccup games on offense per year where points were at a premium and that sort of thing. And so when the offense wasn't clicking, you kind of felt like, okay, well, this drive stalled and man, this is a long kick, but McPherson's there. He'll make that kick. And last year it was kind of the reverse. It was like the offense was clicking almost every week and the kicking game kind of suffered, and, it did cost the team some wins. So it's weird how that script flipped. And like you said, it could be that whole battery deal, the holder, the snapper, and then lo and behold, McPherson had that injury that ended his season. But, that has to be completely in sync this year. And I don't, again, I don't know if Wagner is a guy that is going to be counted upon this year. I think they love continuities, particularly on special teams and in that core group, that battery of guys. But it cannot suffer the way that it suffered through some games last year. It just can't, and it's points are at a premium in the AFC North, and you just can't have a kicker that. I just hope there's not a regression right now. I hope that it was last year was more of the anomaly. They have asked a lot of McPherson. I mean, he has made kicks often from big distances, and that is a weapon that the Bengals had not had for a long time, as you mentioned. So if he doesn't need to be absolutely perfect from these ridiculous kicks, but there needs to be more consistency and hopefully, not that I'm glorifying an injury, but hopefully the groin issue was kind of some of the, the big issue that kind of hurt him last year in his accuracy, but getting this back on track is huge for the Bengals in 2025.
It's been maddening to see his splits differ from year to year in terms of distance wise, because as a rookie, like he was 12 for 14 from beyond 50 yards. In 2022, he was 5 for 5. He didn't have as many opportunities, but he was perfect. And then in 2023, he was 7 for 12, right? But from 40 to 49, as a rookie, he was 8 of 11. He was 9 of 13 the next year. And then he was a perfect 8 for 8. So there hasn't been a single year where he's been consistent from both of those ranges. And they're obviously the two most important ranges and whatnot. But just that 2022 season, when there was first starting to be doubt about his legitimacy as an accurate kicker, even still, like he made 85% of his field goals, and he was 5 for 5 from deep, and he was about 70% from 40 yards. Like, that is acceptable. Like, the Bengals will take that 10 times out of 10, even if it wasn't quite what he was as a rookie. And I think at this point, with him being perfect in the postseason and getting all that recognition, that was probably more of an anomaly and could have been
Right.
just like a crazy in the moment type of situation where he just ran with a lot of momentum and he was a rookie against the world. And, it was a great story, right? But it may not encapsulate who he actually is as a kicker. And that's totally fine, right? If he can return to that 2022 form, even if it was a relative downturn compared to where he was as a rookie, the Bengals would definitely take that over last year, where he only made 3 of 7 kicks from beyond 50. He was still 60% from 40 to 49. Like, that just can't be repeated this year. And if it does, then you're going to have a real conversation about him entering 2026.
Yeah, that 2021 postseason, he's almost his worst enemy, right? I mean, he I mean, not set himself up to fail, but set himself up for problems reaching expectations after that playoff run that he had. And that there were times in that playoff run too, like I mentioned, that the Bengals had a tough time scoring points, putting the ball into the end zone, and he was the guy that they relied upon pretty often to make tough kicks and tough places to play, right? Tennessee, Kansas City, etc. So big year for those three. And then to tack onto it, both of these guys we have as make or break guys already, and that is Charlie Jones and Jermaine Burton for different reasons, but both guys were seen returning kicks and had some success last year. So getting the right formula there, whether it's one guy is the punt return guy, one guy is the kickoff return guy, or it's one guy and you're settling on that, and that guy can remain healthy, can remain reliable, all of that. That is another crucial part because field position's key.
Field position is key, and I think those two are definitely going to get the first chances at that. But I'll throw out another name into the mix here. Isaiah Williams is going to make this team if he does stand out as a returner. I think there's a lot of promise for who he is as a potential backup in the slot. He's only like 5'10", 180 pounds, so he kind of is who he is in that regard. But there was a lot of promise about him in Detroit in that particular role. During the preseason, he only returned like 3 kicks for like a total of 93 yards and whatnot. But like that's just more competition for a spot that's only going to be more important. So the back half of that receiver group is going to be built out through if these guys can stand out in this role, and it may determine who's actually active on game days or not. But obviously for Burton, who needs just a solid year, it would be helpful for him to shine there, which he did in the later part of last year. And that was only the case because Charlie Jones did get hurt. So him staying healthy and just maintaining that role, especially as a punt returner, because he's had very exciting moments there in that role. It would be nice to see at least two of these guys kind of run with these and just add more value to the team.
Yeah. It's funny. We talk about Darrin Simmons and number one, the respect level that this team has for him. I mean, a handful of years ago, he was interviewed for head coaching positions at some point, but there are a handful of positions on this roster, receiver, corner, linebacker, etc., that he has a say in towards the bottom of the depth chart because he needs those guys to be his guys on special teams, punt coverage, kickoff coverage, returners, etc., gunners. So he has a say towards the bottom part of this of certain positions on this depth chart. And so Williams, yeah, he has been gaining a lot of buzz. He might be one of those guys that, you know, when the backup quarterbacks are in the preseason and, you know, they're just kind of winging the ball around and there's that one wide receiver that just seems to be lighting up the show. He might be that guy this year. So remember Damian Willis and all kinds of other players. So
I remember Damian Willis, week one starter, Damian Willis.
Week one starter, Damian Willis. But yeah, so he might be one of those guys that Darrin Simmons, come final cuts time, pounds the table for.
I am curious about how Simmons is going to. This is pure offseason talk. A long snapper battle in training camp.
This is battle,
lead, right? I mean, that's a true 50-50, right? There is win or go home, or probably stay on the practice squad, which I believe Adamitis was on the practice squad, and then Clark Harris got hurt week one. Then he basically was elevated for the rest of the season. But I do think that's kind of interesting because you want the main battery of Adamitis to Rico to McPherson to be sharp and on point. And when you're giving snaps to Wagner, like how much are you interfering with that in the building of the chemistry and just the reps and everything like that? So I am interested to see how much of a real shot that Wagner is going to get. They obviously brought him in for a reason, and it's because Adamitis has not exactly been the perfect Clark Harris replacement. Not that anyone can replace the guy who's played the more games than anyone in team history, but that's going to be interesting for me to see in terms of how Simmons manages that.
Yeah, we'll have to see. The other thing too, what year was Huber's last year? Was it trying to look that up?
It was 2022, I think.
Yeah, that's
maybe it was 21. Maybe the Super Bowl was his last.
It's 20. It was 22. It was 22. And the reason I bring that up is, you know, some of the big moments and the big kicks that McPherson has made, and some of the more, you know, that uber consistent postseason and whatnot. That's Huber, right? And that was his holder. So, you know, you have a new punter in there and that sort of thing. I don't know. That's just something to kind of. And Rico was outstanding kicking the ball last year, but just an element that popped into my mind as to, okay, when was that transition from Huber, who was that veteran guy and knew exactly, you know, they had it down pat, right? I mean, for a rookie kicker, they had it down pat. And so that's just the holding aspect is something to watch. And yes, we are deep into the weeds talking about holding place kicks and long snapper battles. But hey, that's what special teams is. Special teams players are players too. Doggone it. But that is a little bit of a different, segment, or a little bit of a spin on our segment, because we wanted to mention the entire special teams group, and we have a lot of faith in Darrin Simmons to get that shaped up. But it's an important facet, albeit, you know, obviously a very underrated one, particularly on this team with so many high-profile stars, you know, on both sides of the ball. So something still to watch throughout the summer. We're gonna.